What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Coast to Coast Gridiron, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. I appreciate everyone for tuning into the episode today. For those that were able to, are fortunate for the long weekend, hopefully everyone's enjoying their long weekend. I know I am personally having the day off today. Very thankful for that. It was a good weekend of some Canadian football for those that were watching, especially with U Sports and the CFL. The Grey Cup finalizing as well as the semifinals across U Sports. And then tonight, for all of those football fans that are maybe tuning on the YouTube, big game for my Buffalo Bills tonight. Need a big win from them tonight, so my nerves cannot be as high on a week-to-week basis for the Buffalo Bills this year. But my guest joining me today, me and this guy became familiar with each other a few years ago when I was playing some junior football still. Guy spent some time with the Calgary Colts as well as the Okanagan Sun. Was a national champion as well as a second team All-Canadian with the University of Calgary Dinos in 2019 and is currently an Edmonton Elks defensive lineman. J-Min Pelley, how you doing? Thanks for joining me, bud.
Yeah, doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it a lot.
Awesome, man. So, like I was mentioning, you and I became familiar with each other playing in the BCFC in, I believe, 2018 was your one and only year in the BCFC. Playing with Okanagan Sun and myself with the VI Raiders. I believe, unfortunately, on my behalf, I believe you guys got the best of us both times, if I'm not mistaken, that year. But like we were talking off camera, it was just all good vibes, right? I'm
Always.
sure that kind of I'm a big lover of the game, advocate of the game. So obviously, when bullets are flying and kind of we're in the heat of the battle, stuff's kind of maybe a little bit different. But outside the game, it's all good, and vibes were definitely good. So when we became familiar with one another, excuse me, I began kind of following you on social media, followed your journey to the University of Calgary. Me being in BC, knowing a few guys that were on there, kind of getting to watch Tyson and Jalen, and then as well being familiar with Nathaniel Durkin. Shout out to Dirk, being
Yeah,
a Primal guy himself, a Harewood boy. So familiar with some of the guys that were on your team. I believe Charlie Moore, a few other BC guys that were on the roster as well. You guys end up having a very I guess storybook-like season and finishing off with the national championship, and then following your career to the CFL this past few years. So, I guess, Damon, let's bring it back a little bit to the start, buddy. And I believe you call Calgary home, but now Edmonton is. But let's take it back to the Calgary days, and maybe if you could just maybe fill in the people with kind of your beginnings, maybe some role models, your family life, brothers and sisters, that whole sort of thing of kind of maybe growing up as a young kid.
yeah, absolutely. Grew up, born and raised in Calgary. Started football very early. I think I was 5. I think the age requirement might have been 6 at the time. I was big enough. The coaches were okay with it. My parents were okay with it. So got it rolling into football early. So yeah, started playing really young. Kept going throughout my life. Not really much happened when I was young, just learning the game. And then high school kind of is where, I kind of separated myself from my peers in high school. It ended up, I only did 1 year of high school football because in grade 11, they were, that my head coach for high school was also the head coach for the Calgary Colts. And he was telling me that, like high school's not really doing anything for you. You're not getting better. You're just being bigger than everybody out there. So he influenced me to join the Colts, and I would say that he probably had the biggest impact on me at that age in my teens. He told me straight how it was. He said, junior's a good league. There's a lot of talent in junior football. So don't expect to come and play. I'm not asking you to come and play. I'm just saying if you want to get better, you need to be playing at this level possibly right now. I went in with no expectations. He told me I wasn't going to play. So I kind of took that as a chip on my shoulder to, grind it out really hard. And I believe I started every single game my first year when I was 17 in the CFL or CJFL. So yeah, I took that pretty well. Played pretty well all 4 years I was there, I believe. I think I was there from, it must have been 2014 to 2018. Or sorry, 2013 to 2017. And, I got conference all-star a couple of times when I was younger than everybody else. So that was a good experience. Another thing that junior also allowed me to do was my last year with the Calgary Colts. They put me on the Calgary Stampeders junior practice roster, so I was practicing with the Stamps in the morning, and then I would do nothing in the middle of the day, and then go straight to Colts practice. So that was a good experience and something that like really strengthened my football career for sure. And then yeah, like you said, fast forward to 2018, I was playing with the Okanagan Sun. And that was a really good experience. I always heard about how the BCFC was such a strong league and a strong division. So once I was reached out to by the head coach at the time, it was like, of course I'm gonna come. It's a beautiful city in Kelowna, and like they have a good football vibe around the city as well. So yeah, that's kind of how that started. Went to camp there, fell in love with the city. It was just so nice, really hot, not what I was used to in Calgary. And that was quite an experience for me as well. Football there, it's really taken seriously in that town, and even in all those teams towns. So it was a really good experience. And then yeah, 2019 decided to make the jump to U Sports because I was close with the University of Calgary coaches throughout the years. I was getting recruited pretty early at a young age, so always had a good relationship with them. They just kind of knew that, I had a lot on my plate with having my first kid like right out of high school. So they always were just kind of patiently waiting for me, but they knew one day I would come there. It was kind of a conversation we had. And then, yeah, so that year in 2019 was a very special year. I think it was probably one of the best teams I've ever been on in my life, for sure. So I think, yeah, that was a great experience.
So, rewinding things back a little bit, J-Man, who influenced you to play the game of the football? You mentioned about you being big enough at the age of 5. Was it kind of maybe forced upon you by your peers of, you're a big kid, you should try football? Or maybe was it a family member or anything
Yeah,
specific?
yeah, it was actually my cousin, my older cousin. He was about 4 or 5 years older than me. So he's playing, I don't know what everyone calls it, but it's called Pee Wee. So he was playing Pee Wee, and then I had to join Adam. But I was at one of his games, supporting him. And then after the game, we were just kind of throwing the football around, and one of the coaches from the organization said, "How old are you, son?" And I was like, "I'm 5." And then he was like, "Well, I think you're big enough to play. Have you talked to he's asking me if I talked to my parents about it?" And I was like, no, I never really like put much thought into it. And then just like that, I was in like probably the next week.
And I know you were I believe a multi-sport athlete, but was football kind of maybe your first love right away? Did you fall in love with the game of kind of maybe being that bigger kid as well, and probably I would imagine pushing around some littler kids probably at that age? But was football maybe your first love, or did it take some time to maybe fall in love with the game?
Yeah, it definitely took some time for me. When I started out, I wasn't too good at all. Like just like every other kid, I'm just learning the game. I'm not very coordinated and stuff like that. But basketball was definitely my first love. I was a big hooper, especially throughout high school. That was my sport. I thought I was gonna go to the NBA, but things didn't work out that way. I blew up like a balloon, man. So that's how it went.
It's that sounds like someone that we're both familiar with. I had on the podcast. I believe it was my actually first guest on the podcast, Derek Dennis. I believe you guys are familiar with each other. I know he had some hoop dreams back in the day of potentially being in the NBA or whatever. But I believe you ended up attending Bishop McNally High School there in Calgary. And like I was mentioning, I believe you played a few sports. You were saying that on some of the things I was researching. I believe rugby as well as track. So looking, or I guess maybe looking back now and having that 2020 vision, how much do you think that played a role into how maybe uh, athletic you are on the football field for how big you are? I think a lot of people probably came up to you and probably were like, "Oh man, you're just kind of maybe a plug." But if you actually watch your game, you throw on your highlights at Calgary specifically that I'm more familiar with, you're a very athletic guy for your size. So how much do you think that played a role into that?
Oh, that was the biggest role. I think basketball. There was one year going into grade 10, because I knew I wanted to play basketball in high school. You know how it is. Like basketball guys, like they're the stars of the school. Like they get taken a lot more seriously around kids around the school and stuff. So I knew I wanted to play basketball in high school. So I trained really hard at basketball through that summer from grade 9 to grade 10. And I would say that probably had the biggest impact on like my athleticism for sure. I was kind of chubbier when I was in grade 9. I was just always like, I'm big, so I was always big when I was in grade 9. And then practicing basketball, I would go at like 6 a.m. and I wouldn't leave the gym probably till 10 p.m. at night. And that was like every single day. I had a group of 3 friends with me that we would all just like do drills, and then we would play pickup games, and it would just be like nonstop basketball for like probably like 60 days straight. And I would say that probably boosted my athleticism like 100%. Just like all the fine movements of basketball, jumping, being able to run, and being quick on the court. So I would say that probably had the greatest impact. Rugby kind of taught me how to be tough. Yeah, that's all I gotta say about rugby. I loved it, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I think it just taught me how to be tough and take a hit and get hit and give hits out. So I would definitely say all those sports really, really impacted the way I'm able to move today, for sure.
Yeah, I too played a little bit of basketball in high school, but there was rugby offered at my high school. I'll be honest, J-Man, as a quarterback, I'm sure you're aware, rugby was not my forte. I was not signing up for rugby. I'll be completely honest. But to kind of get back into your younger years before we get into a little bit more, I believe you were mentioning on something that I saw that you were a little bit of a CFL fan growing up as a kid. I think that's super important for the CFL moving forward. That was something that I was a little bit of a BC Lions fan from probably around 2007 till 2011 when they won the Grey Cup. But then kind of fell out of it with getting into high school. You tend to start to make plans on the weekends, stuff like that, and then playing junior football from 2016 to 19 walkthroughs on Fridays and you're on the road or you're playing at home on Saturday. So wasn't able to watch a lot of CFL. Now that I'm kind of getting back into it, I see how much it is important to kind of grow the game at that grassroots level and kind of get the love of the game going. I know you were, I believe, a Calgary Stampeders fan as a young man. I believe as well you kind of came something cool. I believe you were a big Charleston Hughes fan and then ended up kind of crossing paths with them later on in the pros and then playing against them. So how important do you think it was to or is to be a Canadian football fan as a young kid and kind of inspiring kids to tune in, watch CFL football, and then as well, how were your kind of experiences as a kid growing up watching the CFL?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a huge fan of Calgary when I was a kid. My aunt took me to a lot of games because I was into football, and she wanted me to experience like the pro level. She kind of looked at it like this is where you could go. You just have to work hard and stuff like that. So I was a huge, huge fan. And like you said, yeah, the guy that I looked up to the most was Charleston for sure. He was killing it since he got into the league. So I think it's a big, big, big factor that we include kids today in the Canadian football game. I think growing it at that young age is so like detrimental to the sport because they carry it on when they grow up. That's who's going to be watching the games. That's who's going to be in the stadium seats. And I feel like the States, I compare the two very well, or not very well, but I compare the two a lot because you see that grassroots level being brought up through football so much more than you do in Canada. So I'm a big, big believer that we need to get more kids involved in football, and especially like watching football and watching the professional football league. You know what I mean? So, that's a big, big factor to me. And I try to do as best as I can to get as many kids as I can. Another story that I have from when I was a kid, I believe I was in like grade 4 or 5, maybe 6, and there was a guy, a long snapper with Calgary, that's fairly well known. His name's Randy Chevier. He came into my school and he had like this very charismatic talk and saying how football wasn't what he expected in the sense of it brought him so much more opportunity in life. It wasn't just about the actual football game. It's about your connections, even when you're young, like learning how to respond to negativity, learning how to follow direction, and learning how to listen to, your boss or your coach, as he would say. So going from there, like that little speech that he had, it kind of shifted my idea because I knew that there's so much more opportunity than just what's on the field.
Absolutely. I won't be biased, but I think that's the best thing about sports is it can kind of give you so much opportunity as well as kind of shape you and mold you to the person that you will be for the rest of your life and stay in those with those disciplines and kind of routines you get into in a season. So, really good point by you. And so, I know you're a big, I believe I was watching of kind of, interacting with the kids and stuff like that. So, how else do you think the CFL can do a little bit better to reach out to the kids and stuff like that? I know I remember being a kid and the Lions did like a play with the pros camp and stuff like that. How else do you think the CFL can maybe do better at maybe kind of reaching out to the kids as well as kind of like cheap tickets nights and stuff like that? I know the Elks do a good job of that as well as the Lions. I remember back in the day being able to go to 7-Eleven and pick up like 2 tickets to the Lions game for pretty cheap. Although, J-Min, as you're probably familiar, I'm over on Vancouver Island, so not able to go as many times as I would have liked, but definitely was able to go over because it is so close. But how else do you think the CFL can reach out to younger audience?
Yeah, I honestly, I just think it starts with more school interaction. I know, yeah, like you said, here at the Elks, we do they do a lot for the kids, which I love. Like, I think they have a ticket promotion where 12 and under, you're free no matter what. Like, you just go up to the ticket booth, say I'm 8 years old, and you get a ticket. So there's some things that they already have started doing. But one thing that I stand by is that I think that they just need to go out to more schools. And do like assembly type stuff where it's like a big group and it's mass. I can't speak for every team. I don't know what they do, and that's kind of more behind closed doors unless they post it on social media. But I know we do like reading weeks and stuff like that, where we'll go to an individual class and then we'll read a book to the class or whatever. I think it just needs to be broader. I think it needs to be all the schools. I think the youth is the future, so I think it comes in with that. Other than that, like I think the CFL is actually doing a very good job of including that younger generation for sure.
Yeah, and they're only going to get better as well. So, to fast forward, Jamin, like you were mentioning, you only played 1 year of high school football, which is crazy to those that probably maybe aren't maybe didn't play or maybe aren't aware, and then transition to junior football right away, which is even more insane. Um, Take us through that transition, like you said. Obviously, you ended up playing probably a little bit more premature than you had maybe been promised or maybe had thought. And then kind of just take us through that maybe mindset you had at that age of being a younger kid and playing against once you get up to like when you're a fifth year and you're that 22-year-old, you start to kind of maybe feel a type of way of like, okay, it's maybe my time to maybe start to push. But take us through that mindset of being a younger kid going against kids that are that much older than you.
Yeah, it was quite the experience. Like I said, yeah, there was just not really a challenge in high school. My school wasn't known for football. They're a Div 2 school, which I mean it's not bad, but they were a basketball school. My school was for sure a basketball school, so football just wasn't really taken that seriously in my school. And yeah, my coach told me to step up to the CJFL, and I stepped up there, and it was quite an experience. I went from not having any meetings in high school. Like, how seldom meetings are in high school. It's more just practicing on the field to, having 2-hour meetings before practice and then a 3-hour practice and then maybe some film after. So that was a big change. Another thing, obviously, was the size of the players, like going against O-linemen that were bigger than me now. And, it was quite the challenge. But I just stuck to it, and it was a good experience. I would say the hardest part probably was, just getting a relationship with my teammates, because a lot of the guys when I joined, they were like, "Who's this kid?" Like, they didn't really take me too seriously because they knew how young I was. Like, my coach, when I came in, he made we had a team meeting, and he said, "Yeah, this is our new player. He's 17, so he can't like do much with you guys." Like, he kind of kept it real with them, and it kind of bit me in the ass because yeah, I got rookied pretty hard there. There was a lot of duties that I had to do, and I had to endure a lot of bullshit. So it was tough, but it was a good character building thing. Like, it made me grow up a lot faster than I did. So yeah, it was a good experience, and playing early as I did, it just gave me more opportunity. You know what I mean? Put my name out there with the CJFL. Once I started getting some awards in my second, I think my first All-Star was in the second year. That's when, schools started contacting me, being like, "You're in high school, but you're playing CJFL." They didn't kind of get it either, but it was just such a surreal experience. Playing with guys that were, maybe sometimes 6 years older than me. It was quite the experience for sure.
I could only imagine the hazing, pal. Has gone through it, but I could only imagine as a even younger kid. But I'm not too sure if you crossed paths with someone that I'm familiar with. Jordan Kuziak, I believe, was on the
Yeah,
Calgary
big
Colts.
Coos, bro, big Coos.
Big
That was,
Kuz.
you know what?
Shout,
Yeah, he was a guy that I actually truly I talked to him often. Actually, funny that you mentioned.
I worked with Kuz for the past like year, so we worked for the same company, the Lanson's Drywall Company. Now he's moved on, but got a decent relationship because I actually grew up, as you know, being a young Raiders fan. He played with the Raiders back in when it was make the Raiders great again, back in the heyday. But I remember watching Big Kuz as a John Barsby in high school as well. He goes to my rival high school that's like 5 blocks away from my high school where I played football. So very, very familiar with Kuz, and then being able to work with him after kind of him not knowing who I was and me knowing who he was
Yeah.
super cool to kind of like pick his ear and shoot the shit at work and be able to kind of ask him some of those old stories about, especially about like Yancey, and then when he went to Calgary and stuff like that with Snoop and stuff. So I was super curious, but I could only imagine a youngster like yourself going against somebody like a Big Kuz and a few other guys of those big guys. I believe Kuz was kind of same path as you. I believe he spent some time on the Stampeders practice roster. So some of those guys that were probably 6 years older than you, grown men at the time, and having to kind of hold your own. I could only imagine, man, and especially in the trenches too. I tip my cap to you, brother, for that. But is there any other stories that come to mind, maybe with Kuz or anything like that? Shout out to Jordan if he's listening.
There's a bunch of stories with Kuz. So yeah, like you said, Kuz is a big dude, and you know what? They moved him to tackle his later years when he was with the Colts. But for my first year, he was inside, he was guard, and so I was going against him every single day. He's a tough guy, and one of the first things that I was shown of him when I first got to the Colts was
the lacrosse fight.
Lacrosse fight, and like I seen that fight, man, and then knowing that I had to go against this guy, I was just like, what the hell am I doing here? Yeah, that was a crazy video. That was insane. Yeah, he's quite the character. Just a funny guy. Love the way he talks. Love the way how loud he is. So story with him. Watching him fight one of our other teammates. Like that's one thing I wasn't used to too. Was
Junior,
practice. Yeah, because in high school no one's really fighting. We're all just having fun. And then I get to somewhere where like it's junior football where it's actually taken quite seriously. Yeah, there's tempers flaring up at practice a few times. So. Luckily I've never been a guy to get into fights at practice or with my teammates, but witnessing that and just being as young as I just remember like, what am I doing here? Yeah, I was choked up for
sure. So for those that aren't familiar, shout out to Kuz, like I was saying, but Kuz used to show up to John Barsby games and sit in the back of his pickup truck and bring a chainsaw and just rev it. That's the type of person Kuz is for anybody that's unfamiliar with Kuz. Shout out to Kuz. I'll definitely get I'll reach out to him and tell him I got you on the podcast. He'll probably love that. But so you end up playing what you said was 4 years of junior football with the Calgary Colts before moving on to Okanagan. And you mentioned that it was the coach that had reached out to you. Was there any other reasons behind you kind of going to Okie and not maybe staying back home in Calgary or anything like that? Or what maybe just kind of took you to Okanagan?
Absolutely. There's a few things. So there's a coach that coached at a high school that I had a bit of friends at. The school is called Henry Wisewood. There's a few players that are, that are in U Sports, and I think a few of them are even in the CFL from that school. And that was a big football school. So their coaches, they coached Team Alberta for U18. So I met this coach named Cody Ehrman. And then coaching with him or playing under him, I met another assistant coach for Wisewood, which was Johannes, who coached with the Okanagan Sun, and just playing under Cody, and he told me to trust Yo when he said to come to the Sun. That was a big factor. Another unfortunate factor was my last year with the Colts. Halfway through the season, they let go of Coach Snoop, and Snoop was a great coach to me. I really respected him. And so when they got rid of him halfway through the season, I kind of I kind of took it as a shot. Like, you know what I mean? I took it personally as well.
Kind of divides the locker room a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that year, like that dismantled a lot in the Colts program, because there was one point we were neck and neck with the Hilltops. Like we were in the, I think my first 3 years I was in the PFC final every year, and then that fourth year is when they let go of Snoop, and you know, we had a team meeting about it, and when they said that they were going to let him go, I remember I think 4 or 5 players just walked out. They're just done with the team. Yeah, it was a big thing, and I honestly thought about stopping playing during that time, like on that day as well. You know, it just wasn't a good feeling around the team. Wasn't a good feeling in the locker room. You know, we had practice after that team meeting, and it just, like, there was no energy. It just didn't feel too good. And then, you know, we ended up not doing so well the rest of the season, and there was just a lot of politics with the Colts that, you know, kind of drove me away from them. And then yeah, I had a feeling just to go to BC, and wanted to play in the BCSC, see what it's about. Another thing that really drove me down to go to the Okanagan was the group that we were getting together. Yeah, the group
Especially
that we were
on defense, pal.
Yeah, it was a dangerous group. You know, I was good friends with Nick Daly, who plays for the Riders right now. Me and him, we played Team Canada together. Same with Nick Cross. So having
Another
those,
CFLer.
yeah, having those two guys, we kind of talked like, "Are you gonna go to Okanagan?" And I was like, "I don't know. Are you?" And he's like, "I'm thinking about it." I was like, "Let's do it." So we all kind of agreed to go there, and then seeing the talent that they already had, like
Connor Richard and
Hunter Richard,
going.
yeah, man. Like there was a lot
Did
of talent.
you cross paths with Kitzman?
Kids, oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. See, he was a freak, man. Like that was another guy that, like, even though I was already in the junior league around that time, even going there, I've never seen a DB that looked like him. Like he is just
Like,
yeah, yeah. So like, and he's like 6'1", 6'2". Like he's not small either. He's just muscle and everything. So it was kind of surreal going there too, because like the team that we had was very talented. And yeah, so when I went there, we even got a house together. So in the house, I think it was Tyler, Connor, and then yeah, Daly, Nick Cross, and then Brendan Hansen, the running back. And Hansen is a guy that I knew from that school that I was talking about, Wisewood. So it was quite the house. Yeah, it was quite the house, man.
just a bunch of all Canadians, no big deal, eh? But yeah, man, having played, obviously for those that aren't aware, I was obviously quarterback too. I was the backup to Jake LeBert, so I didn't go against you guys very much, especially because I know Nick was fairly banged up that year, didn't play a lot, but when he did, he was all over opposing backfields. I will take my chance now, J-Min. I do have a rushing touchdown against that defense, so I will hang my hat on being able to say that. You guys did get the best of us.
I remember that
So,
though. I remember that, man. I remember that. I
so
definitely.
I will maybe keep that in my back pocket, you know, just in case it ever comes up. But you, having played you guys, man, you guys big, fast, physical, and then obviously having the matchup with Langley was very interesting to see as well. But before we talk about that, the kind of ending to that year, how much do you think, and I think you are a great person to speak of, and this is kind of also why I wanted to start the podcast and really kind of get people on here that I would enjoy talking to, but just how you just spoke about how high the talent level was in that locker room with, you know, 3 CFLers. I'm not too sure how often that's happened on a defense, let alone a team itself. How much do you think the CJFL as a whole is like a legitimate pathway to the CFL and can be used for some kids to, you know, maybe they aren't good in school or whatever, or maybe they mess up or whatever, and they can use the CJFL in a way to get to the pros level still.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big advocate for CJFL. Anytime we have any like my community appearances, and you know, there's parents that their kids are in high school and they're looking to get recruited, but they might not have the grades, because a lot of parents will open up about that because they really just want to know how I can help my son get to the professional league. That's his dream, right? I'm a big advocate for junior, because me, like you said, I've never been a school guy. Never was too good in school. I did enough to, you know, keep my own, but I wasn't in love with school. And I knew university would just be too tough, and I didn't want to go to school just to play football. I wanted just to play football. You know what I mean? So
You just make sure you're passing during football season.
that's that. Literally, that's 2019 right there for me. That's what that's about.
Hell yeah, brother.
I think it's like a very a very legit pathway to the CFL. There's that D lineman that played with the Sun, who's now on the Stampeders. Cleon Thomas, I think his name is,
Yep.
right? I don't think he went to school. I think he came straight from junior. So it's a real opportunity in junior football to get to the CFL. Another guy that had workouts, or not workouts, but was invited to the CFL Combine through junior was Connor Richard. He had
Freak.
Absolute freak athlete.
Freak.
He was crazy. He was nuts.
Probably somebody that's probably I'm sure you could attest to it more because you've seen actually pro level, but probably somebody that probably slipped through the cracks, if we're being honest. Like probably someone that could very well have had an opportunity in a pro camp. I believe, and like I said, you'd have a better understanding than me because I've never been around pro camps or anything like that. But from afar, he was an absolute animal. I know eventually ended up playing, I think, a little bit of slot his last year, maybe for whatever politic reasons, but an absolute dog on the defensive side of the football. But continue. Sorry, J-Min.
No worries. Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah, on that year, that was I believe that was 2018 when he went to receiver. He was playing both ways, and he did very well. He also can return kicks. Like he was just doing everything for us. He is definitely a guy that slipped through the cracks. He definitely could have made a roster for sure. But like I said, he got an invite to the CFL Combine. I don't think he chose to go because I think he went to Guelph. He signed to Guelph and wanted to finish out his eligibility at Guelph. So with that, I definitely do believe that there is a real pathway to the CFL through the CJFL. Guys like I know in BC,
Jaden Dalkey.
Yeah, Delkey for sure. There's that also like there's that one guy that played for Kamloops that was on the BC practice roster, and then they called him up for like a regular season game or something.
I forget his name. There was Furlock as well.
Furlock, man. And like the list goes on, and we can like there's some guys from my time in Calgary that from going from like the junior practice roster with the CFL to actually making like a practice roster. There's a few guys that did that as well. So it's a legitimate way to get to the CFL, especially like the good thing about it is you don't have to go to school. Like I was able to work while playing football, make money, and not have to worry about, am I going to pass this test? I need to study for this or what, you know what I mean? It was a very good experience. And I think a lot more people should look into it instead of, just deciding, hey, I'm going to go to the university, because it's the right way to go to the CFL. There's more than one way for sure.
Absolutely. No offense to anybody that's in the books, but personally, and I may be speaking for J-Man as well, never a big school guy. Was never my thing. I'm not even going to say what I was going to say, but just if anyone's into the books, more power to you. If not, CGFL is definitely a legitimate possibility in my mind. So to bring it back as well, someone that we didn't mention is obviously Javon Couture and the Langley Rams. You guys end up making it to the BCFC final that year with that roster. Unfortunately, coming out on the short end, but what was that year like for you? Obviously, it sounded like you had quite the time with, where you stayed. Can you just tell us a little bit about kind of like Kelowna itself as well? It's very beautiful. I was able to get up there last Mabel and spend a good week there for the touch tournament that goes on there. So that was a lot of fun being able to kind of actually let loose and have a little bit of fun there, other than kind of business trip in and out, and you're kind of playing and then back on the road. So how was that year overall for you guys as a kind of fun, and then Kelowna and BC as a whole, as you kind of traveled around different cities, being able to see the province?
Yeah, absolutely. First, got to give a shout out to Jevi. I knew him probably in grade 10, grade 11.
Colts. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I knew him before that even. I knew him through a group of friends. Like we were all a big group of friends that, some of them play basketball, whatever. They went to a different school. They went to a school named Forest Lawn High School. I was always a good friend of mine. He was always a good friend of mine. And then, of course, when I was playing with him on the Colts, unfortunately he suffered his ACL tears. And then I never heard much from football standpoint of his life from like the few middle years of that. There's about two years that he wasn't playing with the Colts, but he wasn't playing anywhere. And then, my first year going to Okanagan, I think was his first year with Langley. And he made it to the CFL from the CJFL. So it's a real way. But that first year with my only year with the Sun, it was an incredible experience through living the Kelowna lifestyle. Calgary. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Calgary doesn't have many beaches or lakes or boats. So that was quite an experience. Getting to go on boats and being able to live life the Kelowna way was really, really fun. A lot of people don't understand that there's it's kind of like a halfway point. There's a very young group of people in Kelowna, and then there's a very old group of people that are retired and stuff. So it was pretty fun. I'll say it was pretty fun. The nightlife was cool. Playing with these guys, and then we're not doing too much during the day, so we're just hanging out. Going for hikes, going to lakes, going to the beaches. That was quite an experience for me. Not being able to do that back home. But then on top of that, just the city, the way that they supported the Sun, because there's not too much to do other than the WHL team that they have there. It was a good experience because a lot of the community people, they really supported us. They were able to give us jobs if we needed, and support us for sure. So it was a great time, great city. And the views from the Apple Bowl are just, they're bar none. I like the mountains in the back, and the sun beaming down on you. Just a great feeling.
Not saying this just because you're on the podcast. Outside of Cali, Apple Bowl is definitely my favorite place to play, especially with the natural grass. I think that's a rare thing. So it's definitely a very good venue to play and watch some football there. So you end up, like I said, coming up a little bit short that year and then transitioning to 2019 where you guys win it all. Take us through that year. I think you guys finished 6-2 or something like that in the regular season. You end up having a 10-2 overall record. How much fun was that year being able to go on that run, play with some of those guys, and then obviously ended off with a national championship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was, and I say this all the time, I think that was my most fun year of football with the greatest team, one of the greatest teams I've ever been on. Those guys, even though we haven't played together since 2019, we talk to each other all the time. We still have all of our group chats going from that year. And then the experience part about it, the experience on the field. This is where I put up with the CJFL, is because the talent is pretty much the same. It wasn't a big change like on field for me. The only huge change that kind of threw some kinks in me was the school part. So yeah, playing there, it was such a surreal experience. There was never a doubt in my mind from the first day of camp that we weren't going to win a national championship. And, we kind of just stuck to it. We didn't get down on ourselves when we lost, only 2 games, but we didn't take that extremely hard. We knew that we were better than what we put on the field the previous night. And it was just such a good experience because the family feeling of the team, we really strung together and created something special. And yeah, like you said, it was kind of like a storyline. It was there was a few doubters for us for sure, especially that U of S, the Saskatchewan Huskies. They were a very strong team. I think they were the only team to beat us. They beat us twice.
Lost in the regular season, I believe, and then beat him in the Hardy Cup, correct?
Yeah. And then in the Hardy Cup, it was actually we beat them. I think it was 33 to either 33 to 3 or 33 to 10. I can't remember which one. But it was a very good experience in that Hardy Cup as well, because the last game that we played them is when they beat us at home at their stadium. And everyone that puts media onto the Can West, they were like, yeah, U of S is going to win it. They're going to take it this year. So it just kind of added fuel to our fire, and then going through that game, we felt it. We were like, yeah, this is ours. And then, that Mitchell Bowl, I think we played the Mitchell Bowl against McMaster. That game, I'm not gonna discredit McMaster, but we knew that game, we got this. They can't hang with us, and that was kind of our thing the whole year, is that no one can hang with us. We're just we're better. and then getting to the national final. That was quite a game as well. That was played in Laval, and we were playing against Montreal. So if anybody's not familiar, Laval wears red, and their rivals are Montreal that wears blue. So when we played in that stadium, all the Laval fans got all the tickets, and they wore all their red to support us to beat Montreal, and that was such a good feeling. And walking off the plane in Montreal, there was just something in there, and we were like this, like we got this, like no one was scared, no one was worried, and then when we started the game, there was never a doubt in my mind that we weren't gonna win for sure.
Love it. So I got to ask this. I was super interested to hear this when I was doing a little bit of research for the podcast. You are now I believe, self-proclaimed largest man to score a touchdown. I believe that season is what you're saying.
Yep.
For those that aren't aware, I believe you are around 6'5", 330 currently. But from what I was hearing, I believe you were mentioning that you were around 400 pounds during that season. Now, for those that aren't aware, you ended up being kind of like used as a goal line fullback in some packages for the University of Calgary that season. Was able to punch it home, I believe, against Regina, if I'm not mistaken.
Week 4 against. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I believe I saw you on another podcast saying that, I think I am the largest guy to ever score a touchdown. Have you confirmed this quite yet? And is this an official stat?
I've looked it up. I've definitely done my research, and I think I can't remember his name, but there was a guy that was I think he was either like somewhere between 360 and 380, and he scored a touchdown. But I definitely would say I was 405. I was 405 pounds, and I don't think that there's anybody that was 405 that scored a touchdown. I don't think anyone heavier than that, and so I think I do hold it. It's not very official, but I'm giving my word to it for sure.
I'm putting in the thumbnail, but I'll use self-proclaimed largest guy to score a touchdown. But the craziest thing is, man, how athletic you are, and especially like I was mentioning about that 2019 tape of yours. I believe a few times you lined up at like end. I'm not too sure if that was maybe like a kind of a different type of front that you guys were in, but just the athletic ability that you have at that size. Have you always been able to kind of move like that? And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but when did that kind of come? I know you mentioned about being a little bit of a chubbier kid in high school there, and kind of getting into junior. I imagine it slowly kind of built up, but being that size too, and as well, kind of I know you shared a couple clips last year, but if you watch some of your highlight video from 2019, there's definitely a few double and triple teams in there. So how do you go about being that size and being able to be that nimble on your feet, being able to kind of squeeze, but if you're getting double teamed and you're able to split that and stuff like that, and as well as your motor too, and not giving up on plays, going sideline to sideline to chase down running backs, which is crazy because they're you would think a lot faster than you, right? But just brag a little bit about yourself and kind of your ability for how big you are.
Yeah, it came naturally. Like there was never like a day where I just like it just clicked on, and it took some time. Like you said, when I was a kid, I was a little bit chubbier. But I think playing basketball helped. Being sideline or court to court, like going back and forth, that helped a lot. But I've always just been able to move. Like that was always my thing. Like even when I was 405, I was able to dunk. So like it wasn't like So it's just been in my blood. My dad's a pretty big guy, so I think it comes down through genetics. But I've always been pretty quick. There's actually a clip on my highlight tape where a guy you mentioned, Charlie Moore, we kind of start running and chasing the quarterback, and this is in the McMaster game. We start chasing the quarterback at like the same kind of position on the field. He's a few yards back further than me, maybe like 3 or 4. But I actually beat him to the quarterback to push him out of bounds. Like it's just always been something, and I always knew that I can run, so I always use that to my advantage. Like not giving up on plays. They always a lot of coaches and not even coaches like scouts and stuff. They always put big guys in these boxes that like they're gonna give up on plays. They're not gonna chase after the ball, and I've always kind of hated that because like we can move too, and it's not surprising when we can because there's a reason why we play D-line and not O-line, you know what I mean? So that's always been my thing. I've always been able to move. And like you said, splitting double teams. I think there was a U of A sack where I got double teamed, split it, and then I was going to get cut, and I just kind of like took it to the knee, but he bounced off me, and then I got like a 19-yard sack on that one. Always just been able to move and be athletic. It's always been a gift for me for sure, and I've always used it to my advantage 100%.
Yeah, you're that 2019 buddy. That tape is freak shit. Seeing what you're able to do on a field at that size, dude, it's crazy, and it's crazy because it's transitioned. I know people probably, and it's silly, right? I'm sure you've been used to this playing the position that you played all your life, but defensive tackle is not really the most glamorous stat position, right? You're not going to get a lot of the stats. You do a lot of the dirty work, but for those that probably aren't aware, maybe CFL fans that don't watch the Elks a lot, right? You still do a lot of the stuff that you were doing back in junior as well as University of Calgary. You just don't maybe get some of the numbers, and you're kind of maybe cleaning up or making it easier for other guys around you to kind of get one-on-ones and or let the linebackers be able to kind of come downhill clean and stuff like that. So it's crazy. I know you were laughing about sharing some posts last year on Twitter, which is crazy because I don't know how many rookies get triple teamed. I believe it was against Montreal, I want to say, last year.
Oh, yeah. When I lifted
clip.
him up. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, things. Yeah, and then that's the thing. I heard it all my life. That was like the biggest thing where like I've also wanted to prove people wrong. Is I was always told when you get to the next level, there's gonna be guys bigger than you. You're not gonna be able to do this. You're not gonna be able to do that. Like, and it's always been kind of laughable to me because like, oh, you don't think I'm gonna be able to do it? Like, watch this. So that's one thing that I've always been true to is power. I'm a big believer on the interior of the D-line. Like if you don't have power, you don't have anything. Like the finesse game does not work in the middle, especially if you run a 3-4, which we were running a lot last year. That clip that you're talking about against Montreal, that was a wild clip. I kind of almost didn't believe in myself. I was right in the middle.
Those are like grown men, dude. Like they go home and
there's a still
that's
picture.
Crazy to me.
Lined up right over the center on the snap. I just like straight pressed him, and I think our photographer he has a still picture on the sideline angle where his feet are about like I would say like a foot or a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet off the ground, like height wise. Like both of his feet are off the ground in the picture, but it's probably like a decent gap between his feet and the ground, and then I'm just like holding them up there, like it's that was wild. And we got a sack on that play because I was drawing the double team, and then the end came and got a sack. Like you said, it's not the most glorious position, and that's one thing I've learned is that the stats don't come as easy, especially being the nose and not the 3-tech. But it's still doable. Like I think up until this year when I tore my calf, I think the game before is when I really separated myself from leading the league in TFLs. I think I had 5 or 4 TFLs, and I think the next guy had 2. So like the stats can come, but it's just it's a lot harder for sure.
All right, big fella. I know you're very happy there in your Edmonton Elks community, and I'm not too sure what you have. I know it's early, but I believe you are entering your first free agency period. I'll be honest, buddy. Come back to BC. We need somebody like you. I know I won't get into politics quite yet. I'm sure you have some an interesting offseason ahead. Is it your free agency year this year? No.
No. So a lot of, and it wasn't broadcasted because what happened was after last year, after last season, I declared for the NFL draft. And being a supplemental draft pick, so not in the regular CFL draft, I was in the CFL supplemental draft. Due to that, I didn't go through the NFL draft yet. So one thing when you enter the CFL draft, you also enter the NFL draft. Like that's your draft year, whatever. And even if your name's not even on the board for the NFL, you're still through the draft. So everyone that's played in the CFL has been through the NFL draft. Unlike me, where because I went supplementally, I had to write a letter to some of the CFL head guys, but I didn't do that for the NFL. So me and my agent talked it over, and after last year, I entered the NFL draft, and because I wasn't in the draft before the year before, I didn't have that month of January to do workouts or anything like that. I got contacted by a few teams being like, hey, we want to work you out if you're free this winter. But then, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that because I hadn't already been through the draft. So then I had to enter the draft. But there was a way that I was kind of like my head coach with Edmonton. They were able to, kind of tell teams, well, he's going to be still under contract for the 2023 season. And so that kind of backed that off. But then with that, because they knew that I was still going to be here. They decided to restructure, I guess they called it. They didn't call it like re-sign me, but they restructured me till 2025. So I'm under contract for, so I'm not on my rookie deal anymore. And I was last year. Obviously I was on my first year deal last year. But this year, I wasn't on my rookie deal or the rest of my rookie deal. I was on my second contract. So I'm under contract.
Interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear.
It's something that they didn't really post, and I asked them if they're going to post about it because I didn't like. One thing with professional sports is you can't talk about everything that's going on behind doors, and that's kind of where I was like, am I able to talk about this with them? And they're like, yeah, we're not gonna. It's not a post for us. Like they're not gonna say we re-signed J-Min Pelley because it wasn't a re-signing; it was a restructure kind of deal. So they didn't bring any light to that. And it's not something I really wanted to just be like, hey, I'm out of my rookie contract or whatever. So it was something kind of like lower in a mumble. But they restructured my contract through till 2025. So I'm on.
Congratulations to you, buddy. That's sick to kind of have a little bit of security. But as a Lions fan, as a proud BC guy, sad because our run game needs somebody like you, my friend, just to be completely honest. But to get back to your journey a little bit, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic happens. I was selfishly very thankful that my last year, obviously, of eligibility was 2019, and kind of being at okay with my career being over at that point. I was never pursuing any other opportunities, never having to deal with that. Well, it was definitely a shitty thing for me looking at other people's situations. You end up, I believe, until you end up playing another game, I believe, go 3 years without playing football or around there. And then, like you mentioned, you get selected in the 2022 supplementary draft by the Edmonton Elks. Now, like I was referencing earlier, if anybody's wanting to, go watch J-Min's 2019 highlight video. And if any scouting people are crazy enough to not sign that guy because he's been out of football for 3 years, they'd be crazy with themselves. So I feel like that has a big reason. I'm sure CFL executives and stuff watch more than just their highlight film. I'm sure they are in attendance for, Can West. I believe you hosted McMaster in the Mitchell Bowl or whatever it is. For anybody that's out east when you guys played in the national championship, I'm sure there was executives that seen you up close. But when it is so long, I'm sure there was questions in themselves for different people. But you end up finding a home in Edmonton with Chris Jones. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of experience in the supplemental draft? Because I feel like it is kind of a unique situation for someone like yourself that's kind of found a name for yourself in the CFL, found some roots. You're now into your second contract, if that's what you want to call it. So tell us a little bit about your experience in the supplemental draft and kind of waiting for so long to figure out what's happening. Were you out of eligibility after that last year with Calgary?
No, so that was the problem, was that I was with Calgary for the 2019 season, and then, like I said, I wasn't a school guy, so football. I went to school for football, and that second semester, that winter semester, didn't do too well. I didn't do terribly. I was still in open studies. I wasn't designated into a faculty, so it was just like basically open studies. And then COVID hit, and they shut down for the 2 years of COVID. I believe we had like some kind of weird 6-week training program through when our season would have been in 2020. It was just like, I think 6 weeks of 4 practices a week. So I was in school during then, and I was able to attend that. But like you said, we didn't play football. We were just doing like kind of individual periods. We weren't doing too much like game planning because there was no games. So it was just kind of more like just like individual practices. So with that, I was there. And then, the 2 years after that, I don't really call that a year. So that was my first year not playing. And then the 2 years after that where COVID happened. And then the 2021 season, that's when it came back. And that's when COVID was still around. They had all those restrictions and stuff like that. And they had kind of some weird season going on in U Sports. But I unfortunately kind of, I got booted out of school. Just wasn't doing too much, and I had 2 kids at the time. That's one thing too. A lot of people didn't realize was, I was playing football, going to school, and working. So it was really, really tough for me. And then so that 2021 season came. I had to sit out due to me trying to get back into school because my draft year would have been 2023 because they pushed back everybody's draft classes because of COVID. Yeah. So they made my draft class 2023, but I couldn't get into school during 2021 season. So it was kind of like, oh man, I have to wait another year or try and get into school another year because I had to get into a faculty and not just open studies at this point. So that was tough. And then I do have to give another shout out to Tyson Philpott because he is like the sole reason why I ever even got into the CFL. He was having a phone call with Chris Jones talking about, just pre-draft stuff because it was his draft year. Talking about like, well, this and that, and we're building something great in Edmonton, and the only thing we need is a good D tackle. And he's like, you need a D tackle? I know the perfect guy. And then he kind of put my name into Chris Jones' mind, and I got a call. I think he talked to him the night before. I got a call from Chris Jones, and Tyson texted me. He's like, hey, just talked to head coach of Edmonton. He's gonna give you a call in the morning. I was like, okay, cool. Didn't really expect too much. Called me up at like 7 a.m., like bright and early in the morning. And he was like, hey, is this Pelley? Like, we really love your tape, man. Like, he's like, and he just wanted to know more about my situation, why I wasn't playing this year, why I wasn't in school. And I just told him, like, I have kids. I don't have the resources to, continue in school. And if it means that I have to sit out till hopefully I can get a CFL invite to the combine, then that's what I got to do. And he was like, well, let me call you back in a week or so, and I'll have something figured out. And, he's the one guy that kind of actually also helped me get into the supplemental. The process of that, it's unique. Not a lot of people do it. I think there's only one other guy in the supplemental with me, and he was at an NCAA college. So it was just us two. And the process kind of goes not normal. Like, I had to go to the regional combine in Edmonton. Not only did I do it just to talk to some of the CFL head guys, I had to talk to a few of them at the combine, the regional combine. Not that I was in it. I just went over because I knew they were going to be there. He was like, Chris Jones told me, like, you should come down, talk to the CFL execs, and see if the supplemental draft is something that they can do for you. Talk to them. One of the CFL execs told me to email him my whole entire situation, like why I'm not playing, this and that. And I kind of just laid it on the line, like, I have 2 kids. I have to work. I have to have money for my family. Like, I'm not in the normal. You're muted, by the way. Yeah.
Providing for your family.
Yeah, providing for my family. Like, it's not like a normal situation for me, right? Like, not every university kid has 2 children, and also has to take care of them as well. So that was one thing that I wrote to them, and then they were like, you know what? Like, we understand your situation. We're gonna allow you to be in the supplemental. And then with that, after I got the okay to be in the supplemental, I just had workouts. Really, I had phone calls with some teams. I had a phone call with BC, Hamilton, but then I only was worked out with the Alberta team. So I worked out with Calgary, and then the next day I worked out with Edmonton. They just wanted to see my mobility. It wasn't really anything skillfully. It was just more athleticism, running, seeing how I move, seeing if I can jump, all that type of stuff. And that's how the process went. And then there's a break for a month, and then my draft was 2 days after the actual CFL draft. And then, I got taken in the second round by Edmonton.
Were you a good like the agility skills that you were going through and stuff like that? I didn't ask you before, but I'm guessing you weren't like the 100-meter when you were playing track and field. I thought you would have maybe been more like shot put, discus, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
How were you in terms of maybe like I don't know exactly, but like the T drills and the whatever else they I'm sure they put you
Pretty
through,
well.
kind of excel in that because of how athletic you are, I feel.
Yeah, I absolutely did pretty well. The biggest thing I think especially with Edmonton, the biggest thing that they wanted to see was my broad jump. They wanted to see how far I could jump, because I guess that's like the
what was it?
I think I jumped like a 9.8, 9.10, something like that. And they like their bar was like 9. They're like you need to get past 9, and I got well past it.
And you were like 330 at the time ish.
I was still heavier at that time. Yeah,
Jeez.
I didn't even cut weight then. I think I was probably, when I went to work out with both teams, I think I was probably around 360.
That's impressive, bro.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's crazy.
So yeah, that's how that went. So it was more so that running. I've always been decent at running. They also had me do like some like just weird, not weird movements, but like unorthodox movements. So like they just wanted to see how my hips work. So they would have me kick like a tackle 3 times to the right and then turn fast and 3 times to the left. They just wanted to see how I moved, and I did pretty well. And then after that, there was probably a month or two break, or maybe a month and a half break from my workouts till when I actually had to go to camp. And then that's when I kind of shed off more weight. And then I got into better shape, and I was able to play a little bit more. So it was quite the experience, and it's special because it's a unique journey. It's not everyone does the supplemental. So it was a very cool experience for sure.
That's super cool though, man. You're kind of continuing to blaze your own trail and set your own path, set a very unique path, like you're saying. And shout out to Tyson. That's a crazy story to hear that. For those that aren't aware, probably a lot of people that aren't aware. Me and BC here, I kind of came or knew who the Philpott brothers with. They came over here in, I want to say, their last year of high school. I was coaching at my old alma mater at NDSS. Got to see them play, and I grew up being able to see Marcus and Terrell Davis, Malik Irons, Jamel Lyles, a lot of good quality BC players, and Tyson and Jalen. Honestly, not to kind of, they might have been some of the best high school football players I ever seen. And it was definitely, since I seen them at that point, I was like, man, these guys are going to end up in the CFL or NFL one day. So I got to make sure I remember the name Tyson Jalen Football. I believe that was probably maybe 2017 or something like that. And what was it, 3 or 4 years later, they were in the CFL like their old man. So very talented young man. And maybe, who knows, maybe I'll get them on the podcast one day.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
they'd be
shortly.
they'd be down for sure. They're always open to doing stuff like that. They're very good kids, man. I love those guys. They
I know,
go ahead.
I've thought, because I was familiar with you and familiar with Dirk, and to maybe reach out to one of you guys about getting in contact with one of them. So, and especially I know Jalen was hurt this year, so I didn't want to kind of bother him when he was hurt. And then Tyson going to the Grey Cup now. Maybe that'll be a good next guest after a big party. But that would be awesome, buddy. But getting back to your story, I believe something that I heard was interesting is you end up getting selected by the Edmonton Elks, going to that organization where you fell in. I feel like, I don't know if I'd say in love, but seems like you've really found a nice home there in Edmonton. Now, the thing that I was curious with is I believe that you started out as an offensive lineman at camp. Now, take us through that journey. I heard you talk a little bit about it before, so you don't have to go on it too long. But for someone that's played football, I completely understand the differences of the two positions and how different it is. Tell us how hard that was, because from talking to you a little bit here, I don't think I've heard you say that you played really much O-line. So going to professional camp as somebody like that, who's maybe, like you're I know you went to University of Calgary, but you're kind of like an underrated guy when you're going against, guys that are from Div 1s and all that sort of thing. And then you're asked to play a position that you've never played. Take us through that experience. Was that, maybe I was going to ask you, was that kind of maybe your welcome to the CFL moment a little bit? I'm sure you had maybe one as a defensive lineman, but having to block grown men when you're not really comfortable with that position, how was that transition for you?
Yeah, absolutely. That was it's I have mixed feelings, very much mixed feelings about that situation. The first part was that I walked into camp, and it was literally like the first day we had medicals. I got my locker in like the visitors locker room. I wasn't even in the big locker room. And then I went to the defensive locker room, because there's a couple of visitors locker rooms that we have. There's like a ref one, officials, and then some TSN staff locker rooms or whatever. So I'm in the defensive locker room. I'm seeing everybody's name. I'm trying to find my locker. I can't find it. I'm like, where is my locker? Where's my jersey? Where's all my stuff? I'm trying to find it. And then I was just like, what the heck? So I went to the equipment guy, Dan, and I was like, hey Dan, like, do you know where my locker room is? Like, my locker is? And he was like, oh yeah, it's in the offensive locker room. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I thought you were a D lineman. I was like, yeah, I am. He's like, oh, well, I guess you're not now. And that's how I found out. I wasn't even told that I was going to be playing O-line. I just found out by not finding my locker in the defensive locker room. But then, like you said, coming from the defensive side, and especially like a high level, it was tough. It was very, very tricky, because not only did I have to unlearn like my kind of movements as a D lineman, I had to learn not to grab, learn not to hold, learn not, like, things that I couldn't do as a D lineman. I had to unlearn that skill during camp. But then a big thing for me was the offensive playbook. Like you know what, like defense is so simple. And I get it. Like that's my life. I understand it. Like even if things aren't drawn up, I can understand verbiage of the defensive side of football. But with the offensive line, I wasn't lost because I'm a football player at the end of the day. If you ask me to play a position, I'll play it, which I did. But it was a lot different. You know what I mean? I've never heard such long play calls in my life. You know, and then yeah, going against guys like Coney Ely, he has a Super Bowl record, a defensive record for, I think he had 2 or 3 sacks and an interception in the Super Bowl with the Panthers. Going against him, going against an 8-year NFL veteran like Daniel Ross, you know, I'm going against these proclaimed D linemen,
dudes,
and I have to like learn what I'm doing against them. It's like I just felt like a very, very unfair advantage on me. So it was very tough. You know, I thank God that, you know, at the end of camp, they're like, all right, let's put him back on defense and let's see how he does there. Because I just think if they kept me at O-line, I think football wouldn't have been much of a career for me. I wasn't very good at it. Like I'm a defensive lineman, you know what I mean? So it was tough. It was very, very tough, especially going against those guys. Even Serezna, like imagine that. I don't even know how to set my feet as an O lineman, and I have to block Jake Serezna because he's playing interior at that time. And then, not to mention, I totally forgot. I think my fourth day as an O lineman, they put me at center, and I'm not talking like they put me at center to snap the ball to the quarterback. So like it's just like just throwing or whatever. I was doing inside run at center. And I did not know how to snap. I'd fumble snaps and I'd get in trouble. You know, it was hard. It was very, very hard, and it was a great learning environment, I guess.
I think
Maybe a lot.
it shows to you though. You persevered and still find a way to get on the roster that way though, man. And probably learned a lot about, you know, mental toughness and still kind of wanting to pursue what you knew you were there to do. So crazy to hear that story. When I was doing a little bit of research, like I was saying, hearing that on the podcast, I couldn't believe that you're on the offensive side. I couldn't imagine having to do that at a pro camp. So you end up having, you know, probably obviously a disappointing win-loss season, but how was overall your rookie year as kind of from an individual standpoint, and maybe who are some veterans that you gravitated towards and tried to maybe latch onto and learn how to be a professional?
Yeah, absolutely. The first year, yeah, the win, like the way we ended, you know, our standing wasn't great at all. But you know, it was a good year, and it was a lot of learning for me. You know, and at my exit meeting at the end of the year, you know, we went through like how I progressed throughout the year, even through that season. Which, if I look at it, yeah, I feel like I did get a lot better throughout the year last year. You know, coming to like the final 4 games, I really felt like, yeah, okay, I got this. This is my, like, I understood it, you know, and, you know, jumping into a starting position pretty early on with the CFL as well. Not many rookies start in the CFL. And I believe I started like 8 or 9 games my rookie year due to injury. But I mean, I held my own. And then when the original starting nose came back, I was still starting like after he came back. So it was a really good year for me for learning and, you know, proving it to myself. That was a big thing for me because there was a point in maybe the first game or two where I was like, man, am I like I just didn't feel like my 2019 year self. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like I was this big powerhouse or whatever. But then near the end of the year, it really started to click. You know, and it was a good experience for my first year for sure. The vet that I looked up to the most, and I always say this to him, I always tell him he's like my big bro. He's not much older than me, but his name's S.A. S.A. Marber. I don't even know. I'm not even going to butcher his last name. I don't know how to say it. He was number 92 on our team last year. Yeah, he's a big veteran that I took in. Like, he took me under his wing and really showed me how to be a pro. You know, he actually he flew in this past weekend, and I was actually able to visit him this past weekend as well. He lives in Toronto. The last game of the last year's season, one of our own teammates, a DB, kind of shot for a tackle while he was chasing the guy, and the guy kind of juked him out. And, you know, the DB took out SA's knee and actually tore his ACL. So it was kind of an unfortunate an unfortunate play. So he wasn't there this year, but he's a guy that I learned a lot from. Another guy that's teaching me still to this day, like to how to carry myself as a professional, for sure would be Aaron Grimes. He's a true pro. Like he's a very very true pro. He loves football. He hasn't been playing these last few years due to injuries as well, but that's the thing that he's showing me the most about, because not even though he hasn't played in a game in the last 2 years and hasn't practiced too much, he's the guy that's always going to be at the stadium, always going to be putting in work at the gym or trying to rehab his injuries. Like he's a guy that shows me like what a true pro is, and I really look up to him for that as well. And then there's those guys that are like at the top of their game that they teach by doing, which would be like Jake Seresna, like just being like an ultimate player. He's showing me how to play in the game.
That guy's motor does not turn off.
He's unbelievable. Like he is unbelievable. Every time that I get asked like about like NFL, like if I had to pick one person from my team to go to the NFL, I always say Jake. Just because of like you said, his motor is unbelievable. But not only that, like he's strong, he's aggressive, he has good pass rush moves. Like he's a really really good player. So he's another guy that I've kind of looked up to as well. And then like I guess everyone in their own way is a guy you can look up to for sure.
Yeah, I think those guys are huge, especially like when you get a curveball and you can't find your locker in the defensive locker room when you're playing O-line. I feel like those vets that kind of keep you grounded, keep you mentally focused and kind of what the goal is, because it's pro football. As much as they do care about you, they kind of have to worry about the business side of things too, right? And maybe they wanted you to play D-line, but you're going to play O-line, and kind of learning to guide your way through that alone, I feel like is just not probably a smart thing to do. And I feel like when you can gravitate, I actually had Gavin Cobb, teammate of yours on. He was obviously a proud Vancouver Island guy. He talked about how much Manny Arsenault was kind of important to him last year, and kind of how he grew up watching Manny with the lines and stuff like that, and then kind of being in the locker room alongside Manny and kind of learning and being able to pick his brain is something that he was saying about how important it was to his career. So I think those vets are big keys into. I know we see it more so in basketball when we're kind of losing vets, but football, I feel like you always need those guys around I wouldn't say maybe the bottom of the roster, because that's not always right. Sometimes the good guys can always be the kind of good leaders, but I feel like the vets are always a good part of a good structured team and kind of keep the locker room in check. So something, or I guess we'll transition now. You guys, like I mentioned, about not really having the greatest first rookie season, but I feel like you were mentioning, you found your form going down the stretch there and really got some confidence going into the next year. Unfortunately, you ended up having not probably the off season that you wanted to last year, and forgive me if maybe you didn't want to talk about it, but you went
totally fine. Yeah.
Quite a bit of adversity last year, and I really wanted to, and I thought it would be a good opportunity kind of for you. I feel like you haven't really, if people weren't aware what it kind of transition or went on for you in the last whatever 12 months it's been, you could probably never tell because of the way you carry yourself, the way you're very energetic. Your smile just came to your face right there. I believe your off season kind of started with the unfortunate news of your teammate, I believe, Salisbury, I believe the running back for the Edmonton Elks, I believe he passed away. I believe your appendix almost burst, if I wasn't mistaken,
yeah.
Or maybe it did burst.
Oh yeah, in the season though, that was like the last three weeks. I just had the surgery about a month and a half ago. Yeah, that was bad. That was bad.
And then I believe you felt through what you said, a calf tear. So you weren't able to be on the field as much as probably you would have wanted this year. And then as well, the loss of your daughter, I believe it's Janae. Forgive me if that's not correct. But if you could, J-Man, I think one thing that I've really took about kind of getting to know you a little bit more throughout my research is just kind of I feel like you can inspire some people to kind of the way you carry yourself in this moment of toughness and like I feel like you said, you've had your days and everybody has those days, but I feel like when you're able to kind of leave the door or whatever, leave the house to go to work out or whatever, you're able to I don't know if you want to call it flip the switch, but you can kind of turn the page, if you will, and kind of find a positive in the negative. So could you just talk a little bit about that and then kind of how you've been able to handle the last year or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yeah, so right off the bat, off season, most of our teammates went home, and it's a very unfortunate thing, but it's the truth. Some of these guys playing in the CFL that are Americans, sometimes when they go back home, they're not going to the best situations, or the best neighborhoods, best cities, or whatever. So unfortunately, yeah, we had Christian Salisbury. He's a running back, but he was really turning the page on being a good returner in the league. He unfortunately went home and he was shot and killed at a house party where he was at, and that was very unfortunate. And honestly, that was my second teammate that I lost to gun violence. When I was practicing with the Stampeders in 2017, my teammate Mylan Hicks, he was shot and killed at a club in Calgary. It was I learned from that experience about handling a teammate's death from the Calgary situation, but actually being on the team and playing with this guy, playing in games with this young man, Christian, he was a very bright light in our locker room. He always had it like, I don't smile if you talk about him. He smiles. Like, he was a guy that had the biggest smile, always laughing, always having a good time. So going from that and then learning the tragic news that he passed, that was very, very tough. And it was very, very tough for our whole team. Most of our coaches made it down to his funeral and stuff like that. And I know it hurt a lot of us. So that was very, very tough. But then we moved on like a month later. And, one night, just randomly in February, me and my wife, we woke up and our daughter wasn't breathing and we were trying to, get her back and stuff like that. But unfortunately, she passed away due to sudden infant death syndrome. There's no causes of it. There's no way you can stop it. It just happens to some young children, and it's very, very unfortunate. It was the toughest thing that I have and ever will have gone through. That was the one experience that, I think really changed me, because I haven't always been this perseverance guy. I used to, when I was younger, I would let things bother me and I'd get, upset, or I'd be able to like wear my emotions way more than I do now. But the way that I look at it is like, that was the worst thing that has ever happened to me or ever will happen to me. So there's like kind of nothing that I can't overcome now. That's the one way, and that's the one way I look at it, and that's what I like stick to 100%, is that I can't let anything else in the world bother me more than that did. So that's what I took with me from that terrible experience. But we got through it as a family. We're still trying to get through it. It'll never be the same or never be okay. But it's how you can keep going, because every time I think I want to stop something, or after it happened, I was thinking about not playing this year, just because I didn't feel like I was ready. Like, it was just a lot of emotional stress on me. But I like, one thing that I always look at is like, would she want me to not play? Like, of course she wouldn't. Like, she knows that I would need to play, right? So that was one reason why I didn't stop playing. And then, yeah, like you said, I had a good decent first 6 games. I was doing my thing with the TFLs. I was doing really well with the TFLs and stuff like that. I was really feeling it. Like, I was good. And then one day at practice, just randomly doing an individual period on the bag, we were just hitting bags, doing some pass rush moves. I just took a step and I felt like my leg, like it literally felt like it exploded. And yeah, I fell straight to the ground, had to get carted off. And that was like my first real injury ever in football, other than like maybe a concussion. But like, with concussions, like, you can be back in a week or so, you know what I mean? Like, they are bad. I'll never say the concussion's a light injury, but the turnaround time from having a concussion is like maybe like a week, 2 weeks. Some people more severe, maybe like a month or so. But that was my first injury that actually put me out for more than like a week or two. So I was out for 6 weeks with that. And one thing that because I've never had an injury like that before, one thing that was really hard in my mind was like, am I going to be the same player? Am I going to be okay with, making steps? Am I going to be the same type of guy? And, luckily enough, I just didn't think about that when I was playing. I only thought about that after I was playing. I didn't think about I didn't give second thoughts to, maybe taking steps or, running down the field. But before coming back, that was a big thing in my mind. Like, am I going to be able to even run? Am I going to be able to get off with my calf? And it was a process too, because after I was back playing, my calf still didn't look the same. Like my one calf was pretty defined, and the other one was just kind of like a blob. It was really, really weird. But yeah, I came back for 3 weeks, had a pretty decent 3 week stretch of games, and then we had a bye week. And I started dieting for the bye week because I wanted to get into a little bit of a lower weight class. I just want to lose a couple more pounds. And then one day randomly I just got a pain in my stomach, and it was like pretty bad in the morning. It was bearable. But then like a few hours later, it moved down to my side, like on my right hip, and it was just like really painful. I didn't cry when I tore my calf, but when I went to the hospital, I was sitting in the waiting room for about 8 hours, and I think all 8 hours I was tearing up like a madman. Like that was painful. That was very, very painful. And they kept me waiting for, I would say it was a little bit too much time, but I was there. I think I got there at 6:30. I didn't even get my 6:30 p.m. and I didn't even get my like CT scan to get to know what's going on until 4:30 a.m. the next morning. So I was there for quite a while before they knew what was up. But then when they seen my CT scan and seen that my appendix was looking in rough shape, they came, they rushed me in. They were like, "We're so sorry. We didn't think it was that. They thought it was kidney stones." That's what the nurses kept telling me. They're like, "Have you used the washroom? Like, have I used the washroom, whatever?" And I was like, "No, I haven't been able to." So they thought I was just trying to pass kidney stones. So they didn't take me too seriously. But when they got the CT scan, they rushed me into surgery. And then the doctor said that my appendix was dead already. So it was basically just waiting to burst. So if I moved the wrong way, if I went home and slept on my side and moved the wrong way, would have burst, and that's toxic, and it's
Life or
toxic.
death.
Yeah, it's you can die from it. It's like, I think if it bursts, you have to get to the hospital fairly quickly, or like fecal matter, toxic, and all that type of stuff will be in your blood system, and it's not a pretty scene for you. So luckily enough, they were able to get me into surgery and remove it before having anything bad really happen. But then the real unfortunate part was that our bye week was our fourth, like the fourth last week. So we had 3 more games after that, and the recovery time for appendicitis and the surgery is 3 weeks. So it was very unfortunate. I was very mad. At the the first instance, I was pretty upset, but at the same time, like I always remember, like, the worst has already happened to me. Like, this isn't bad. So that's what kind of kept me going, and it's just something that I'm always going to be able to keep with me, because I'm going to always be able to face anything if I just know that, losing my daughter was the worst thing to ever happen to me. There's not going to be anything worse than that. So it's, she gives me strength for sure.
Fuck yeah, dude. Great to hear. And like I said, man, really, really inspiring. And your resiliency is second to none to a lot of people, man. I'm not too sure if a lot of people could have handled the last 12 months that you've been through, especially, like you said, you kind of had the thoughts of maybe not playing football this year. I'm sure a lot of people might have, focused uh, and not focused on themselves, because you're not focusing on your family and stuff like that. But that, like what you just said of, your daughter would want you to play, and kind of that keeps you, I would think, somewhat mentally sane, and kind of staying at home all the time probably would not be the best way to handle that situation. So like I said, man, just super, super inspiring. I hope anybody that's listening is able to take something from that, and kind of see the way that you're able to handle yourself. And personally, I'm not the most religious guy, so I know I don't want to say this and kind of sound a little bit weird, but I always see those things that, like, God doesn't put you through something that you can't handle, right, and stuff like that. So it's only a test, and you kind of, I feel like, have it kind of, you have a good mindset to attack this and have attacked it. So just like I said, bud, tip my cap to you and everything you've been through this past year. So on the field, like you were saying, this year, you were kind of finding your way, and unfortunately weren't able to stay on the field as much as you probably would have liked. But I think from an organization standpoint, you guys have found some foundational kind of footings to grow upon here. Now, I will take this time, J-Man, that I had the podcast earlier in the year. I did pick the Elks to finish third in the West, so I was on the bandwagon early. I know, right?
Hey,
I
Let's
was on the
go.
bandwagon early, buddy. I have the receipts. Okay, you go back, look at the YouTube video back in June, I believe it was. I was on the bandwagon early. Now, unfortunately, the first few weeks did not make me look the greatest. Now, that being said, the young man, Trey Ford, obviously, for myself, I know you talked a little bit about kind of, I don't know if I'd say defending Taylor, but the kind of criticism that was happening to him was, I feel like, maybe a little bit unfair that you were kind of saying. But for me, being a Canadian kid and kind of Canadian quarterback, I know I didn't do anything at a high level, but seeing Trey Ford kind of being able to come in here and kind of do his thing was really kind of exciting for me, and hopefully gives, I think, a lot of Elks fans and me, hopefully going into next year, some more hope to pick them higher in the standings once again. Talk a little bit about, I think, the foundation that you guys have found here this past year, building towards next year. Obviously, you guys, we don't have to talk about it, but you snapped the streak. That is over with. No more talking about that anymore. I actually hope to be in attendance for maybe a game next year. I know you're familiar with our good friend Daryl. Daryl came out to BC this year to join me for the home opener, I believe it was.
Yep.
So I told him at the game I owe him a trip out to Edmonton. So I will definitely have to get out there for a game
Okay.
next year, and hopefully a Elks win. Unless it's against BC, then sorry, pal, I got to go with the hometown team. But
That's fair. That's fair.
talk a little bit about the foundation that you guys have built and kind of building for next year in the future. I think because you guys are somewhat of a young roster and have some young pieces to build behind now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely a young roster. I'll say that we have. It's there's no gray area. Like it's either white or black. We're either there's either kind of older guys or there's the young guys. So we kind of found our foundation for sure. Our DB room was probably the youngest in the league for sure. And those guys balled out. I know they took a lot of criticism, but we were on the field. The defense was on the field a lot especially the first 9 games. So those guys were tested early on, and they reacted very well. Like even having like Kai, who was a rookie of the year finalist or whatever. Those guys really found their way. So, having those guys, learn their jobs and learn how to play the Canadian game. It's been a very, very good thing for us and very exciting. And then of course finding Trey Ford and letting him shine and be who he is, then it was such a surreal feeling. I know that for sure because me playing with the University of Calgary, I had a Canadian quarterback, obviously being in U Sports, Adam Sinegra, who is another quarterback that I feel very, very much slipped through the cracks. I think he was a phenomenal quarterback. So now seeing that, teams might be more open to Canadian quarterbacks, that's been such a good feeling for me too. Cause I cheer for Canadians. Come on now. So that's a good thing for sure. And then finding the foundation, retaining key pieces like Jake Seresna, Niles Morgan, Scott Hutter, another great Canadian that is really, really doing well. We have a good, strong foundation on defense, and then the offense, they like the last half of the season, they really found their way. Maybe some games more than others, but they were looking really, really, really good as well. We got some good veteran guys that are, not too much older than, the younger guys, so they can relate. That's a big thing that I feel is a big change in the locker room, is that you can't really relate to everybody like you can in like junior or U Sports. Yeah. Like you have guys playing like 80s rap music where I do like it, but I don't want to listen to that before a game. So there's things like that. But finding our key parts and retaining them is a good part of what we got going on this year. Last year we had a lot of turnover. Oh, that's my dog. Okay, Django.
What's up, Pooch? What's his name?
Django, like the movie.
Like it.
He's huge, man.
Any more pets or just the big fella?
Yeah, just the big guy. Yeah, he's one and he's enough, man. Yeah. If I had another one, my bank would be done. This guy eats raw meat, so he's
eating a lot.
Yeah, oh yeah, he eats a lot. Yeah, he's not gonna leave me alone now. Yeah,
he'll be a star of the show.
All right, there you go. But anyways, one thing that we had not a lot of last year was, the same guys in our locker room. We had a lot of turnovers. We had a lot of releases and additions to the team. And I think that's something that our coaches kind of now are picking. Like, they've said it, like, we know we need to keep a group together for the group to thrive. You know what I mean? Like, it's we're becoming one band, one sound. So it's a good feeling knowing that, we have some really, really good players, and, we're all going to be together again for sure. So I think that's a big part to it.
I think this year kind of gave you guys, some probably added confidence going into next year that, you know what, boys, we probably let a few games get away from us that we could have won. That, looking back at it, you probably could have maybe been in the West playoffs if maybe a few other games went in your guys' favor. I look back at it, J-Man. For any of those that are second guessing me, episode 16 of the podcast, all right, go check it out. Like I said, I have the receipts. I had the Edmonton Elks in third place. Unfortunately, it didn't go my way this year. Next year, it's going my way. I'll say it now early. I'll take you guys third, heading into next year.
Let's go.
Because I think you guys have a lot of good young pieces, as well as kind of being familiar with a lot of you guys as well. I had Gab on, like I said. Dave Campbell, I know you're familiar with him. He's been someone that's been really nice and generous of his time to me to come on here and talk some Elks football and just CFL football in general. So just really easy. Daryl's another good guy. I know he can get a little bit boisterous on social media from time to time, but Daryl's another good Elks fan that I can't help but kind of root for and like to see some success for that organization, as well as just being close. And I want to get out there next year and hopefully see maybe a win if it's not against, like I said, the Lions. But not too much more to talk about, bud. Other than, what is your kind of mindset for this off season? You mentioned kind of some camps down south. Is your eyes potentially on some opportunities down that way, and obviously getting prepared for your next season if no opportunities come up? I'm sure getting prepared for your Edmonton Elks 2024, I guess, will be, which is crazy. What's your kind of mindset and ideal plans for the off season?
Yeah, I think it's kind of tough because in the CFL and in the NFL, I'm a different player in each league. In the NFL, there's actual things as run stoppers and stuff like that, whereas in the CFL, it's such a pass heavy game that it's more about pass rush and stuff like that. So I'm looking into getting into shape because I did miss the last three games of the season, so I'm a little bit behind, but looking to just train extra hard, because some opportunities are going to come up, and just have to make the most of it down south. But other than that, like you said, if I'm back next year, the goal is to drop a little bit of weight, just so I can I feel like my strength is okay. Like, even if I did drop maybe even like 10-20 pounds, I'd still be one of the stronger guys, I feel like, just because of how heavy I was back when I was really heavy. Mass moves mass, so I was always really strong back then. Like, since I weighed 405, benching 405 was not a problem. So I've always kind of retained the strength part. So hopefully I can just lose a little bit of weight just to get that speed factor, because I want to be a real speed threat as well while being big. So that's one thing that I'm really, really focusing on this year. Other than that, just being dialed into training consistently throughout the off season, which I usually do, and I do pretty good job. But having kids, having a busy life, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. So just staying on top of what I'm doing, and just making myself the best possible player I can be for the next season, wherever it comes.
Yeah, buddy. Well, wishing you best of luck in the off season. Before we get out of here, we're going to bring back one more segment, and it's a quick one. It's called the 40-second play clock we like to do here on the show. I haven't done it actually in a few episodes, but it's just a quick this or that, but it's in the 40-second play clock. So we'll have 40 seconds, J-Man. I'll ask you a couple questions, bud. We'll go back and forth, and sound good, and we'll get you out of here.
Let's do it.
All right, so 40-second play clock with J-Min Pelley, folks. And are you a morning or night person?
Night, for sure.
Xbox or PlayStation?
PS5.
Iced coffee or hot coffee?
Iced coffee.
Window or aisle seat?
Window.
Plane trip or road trip?
Plane trip, for sure.
Bone in or boneless wings?
Bone in.
Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Smooth.
Campfire or fireplace?
I like campfire.
Series/shows or movies?
I'm a series guy.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
New shoes or new clothes?
New shoes for sure.
All right, and last one because I know you're a gamer. Call of Duty or Apex?
Apex, man. Apex. I knew the
A-
new Call of Duty just dropped too. I haven't even bought it because I've been grinding Apex, man. All my friends are telling me to buy it because I was playing Call of Duty recently, but yeah, no, I'm back. Apex is my game, man. I love that game.
Love to hear it. I would imagine probably training, and then you get your valuable gaming time in now that it's the off season, and obviously imagine probably running around with your girls, taking care of the family and stuff like that. So, Jamin, I know we went a little bit over time, buddy. It kept you here probably 30 minutes over time. So, like I was saying off camera, man, I just really appreciate you giving me some of your time. Like I was saying, getting out of football, I kind of wanted to find a way to kind of give back, and then use my platform to kind of shoot the shit and kind of story tell and kind of be able to find other ways to stay in the game, like I was saying. So being able to talk to some of you guys that have done it at the highest level or second highest level, whatever you want to call it, is super cool for me because it kind of gives me an insight to somewhere that I've never been. And obviously, growing up playing football, I had aspirations of playing pro football and stuff like that. But when it's not able to happen, and I'm able to build connections with guys like you and Gab and Derek and stuff like that, it's super cool for me to kind of go behind the curtain, and as well as like we were talking about the youngsters and stuff like that. I feel like the NFL and down south has so many podcasts and stuff like that, and the Canadian game needs to kind of get a little bit more spotlighted as well. I think the community and local coverage is really good, but I think from a national perspective, I think could be a little bit better on the CFL, even U Sports as a whole. That's something that I'm trying to get a little bit better at this year. Going to my first UBC game for the first time this year was super cool. So being able to kind of realize how much of a good level of play that is as well, and kind of hopefully being able to spotlight some of those athletes as well. I just had Theo Benedette on the podcast. I had one of my VI Raider teammates that's down at St. FX, Nathan Coyote, on the podcast. So hopefully going to dabble in the U Sports football game a little bit, and just what we were talking about Canadian football, and kind of try to showcase their our athletes a little bit more and kind of storytell, like I was mentioning. So I appreciate you, buddy. Hopefully everybody that's tuning in today is able to appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us, telling us a little bit about your story. Before we get out of here, if everyone's tuning in, could like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. If anybody's listening on Apple Podcasts, please sure to like, follow, download, rate, all the good stuff over there on Apple Podcast. J-Man, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us, buddy. I really appreciate it. What's on the schedule for the afternoon? Any plans? Just gonna probably game out a little bit, spend some time with family.
Go work out right now. I was gonna go work out in the afternoon, and then I spend the evening gaming for sure.
Attaboy. So have a good rest of your off season. I'm sure I'll keep in touch with you and maybe get you back on sometime, maybe going into next season or something like that. Like I mentioned, buddy, it's not just because you're on the podcast, Gavin's on the podcast. I'm on the Elks bandwagon. Antler up, I believe is what they like to say. So I'll be rooting for you guys next year as long as you're not playing BC, like I said. And I think there's good things coming for the Elks down the road. And I think the CFL is a better place, a better fandom when the Elks are good. So have a good off season, bud. Like I said. Wishing you nothing but the best in your opportunities and stuff like that down south. And hopefully we'll talk again, maybe going into next season, and maybe have some good news going down south and an opportunity. If it is, hopefully it's maybe with my Buffalo Bills. We could use a big one tech like you as well. So everybody that's tuning in, like I said, please continue to support the podcast, Apple, and on the YouTube channel. All the support is greatly appreciated. We will see you guys on the next episode of Coast to Coast Gridiron.
All right, thanks for having me, bro.